Welcome to the show, Get Me Someone Who Can Sell. I'm your host, Olga Pishnyanka, and I have an amazing guest joining me today, Ben Kelton, somebody that I look up to, and I've looked up to since I met you, which was a long time ago. 2011 maybe? Sandler?
I'm hesitant to date us, but yes, it's been over a decade.
I know. Okay. Well, so this show is really for three kinds of people. So the first kind is any kind of sales leader, a CEO, a founder, CRO, any kind of sales leader that is responsible for making sure that their revenue goals are met and the company hits what they need to hit in terms of revenue. The second kind of people is sales professionals that got promoted recently into the sales leadership role, and they want to learn how to identify talent, real salespeople who can actually sell in real life, and how to actually interview them. Because what I do in this interview is I ask questions that I typically ask in the second interview, which is a technical interview to salespeople. So you're gonna kind of learn how to interview and what to look for faster with this. And then the third category
Is that a nice way of saying I'm on the hot seat today, Olga? That
you are in a hot seat today. Yeah, I did not tell you that, right?
This is my second technical interview.
I've already qualified you. I wouldn't do it to just some stranger that
Let me adjust in my seat here. Okay, I'm ready to go.
For others. And then the third category is for salespeople that want to grow in their career and learn from some of the best out there who will give you no BS things and be straightforward. Our last episode was with Adam. It was incredible last week. I know Ben is going to bring it today because he's got so much wisdom to share. And there's a lot of things I like, obviously about your career, but and we'll talk about that more today. But do you want to say a couple things, Ben? Kind of what are you up to these days? What are some of the exciting things that you're working and growing in your career so far before I jump into our interview?
Yes. So first of all, thanks a lot for putting me right after Adam. That's quite a hard set.
You can do it. You can do it.
Yeah, Adam's a close friend, and he's an amazing professional. So I feel honored to not only to talk with you, Olga, but to also follow Adam as your second guest. So, yeah, a little bit of background on me. So I really can't remember a time when I wasn't working as a young person, even in junior high, either putting together businesses or doing odd jobs to get money. And then going through and working for an engineering services company through high school and then college. But I really like to say that my first sales job was working in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill for the U.S. Senate. I was working for a senior U.S. senator. First,
it's like the toughest sales job ever.
It's pretty tough.
I mean, politics is really hard. That's just saying. It's a hard job out there.
Well, and it's interesting. I went to DC really wanting to understand a few things. First is, how does the government really work behind closed doors? But also, I knew that I would be able to interface with a type of leader that are very high quality leaders, and I'd be able to observe how do they view and interact with the world, and then what can I take from those learnings and adopt it myself. And one of the things that I learned was everything is sales. And it doesn't matter if you're selling a product or a service or an idea, right?
Right.
A lot of human interaction is about leading and influencing and persuading. And there were some really valuable lessons in that, especially, not only techniques on how to influence and how to persuade, but also becoming a student of your topic and really learning whatever it is, your industry or whatever it is that you're setting yourself towards, but really having a deep level of understanding and knowledge around that topic so that you can then go out and serve people well and persuade and lead people well.
So let me ask you first question. And this is the thing about interviewing, you guys. If in sales interviewing, never be afraid to interrupt, right? That's
right.
kind of you gotta make sure that so one of the questions I like to ask, and you kind of started answering that already, is what interested you in sales, and how did you know you're going to be good at it? or like what led you to believe you're going to be good at it? So can you tell us a little story about that?
Sure. I knew through that experience in the Senate that I wanted to go into business because, I got to interact with all different types of people, military, business people, banking people, all the things. And in my opinion, the folks who were maybe the most savvy were the business people. They were very good at establishing rapport very quickly, in a very concise way, identifying and communicating the problem, and then putting things into motion to go out and to solve the problem. And so I thought to myself, boy, I want to be. I want to be one of those folks. And one of the things that gave me signals that I would be good at selling was the fact that I enjoy doing all of those things, but also that I tend to have a process-oriented approach to identifying a problem because really you have to put a name on a problem, right? It's kind of step
Right.
number one. You have to recognize, okay, there's an issue or a problem or an opportunity to address something here and to solve something. Secondly, you got to put a name to the problem, and then you have to put things into motion to go out and to address and solve the problem. And my mind has always worked pretty sequentially. I've
Mm-hmm.
always been pretty process oriented, and so I noticed that I had the ability, especially to go into situations where there was no structure, there was no process, and to analyze it and very quickly put together processes and systems inside of that thing in order to go out and tackle those specific problems.
So would you say that when you were in politics, that was the first time you had to hit some kind of numbers or goals? Or do we go back to the military where you had to hit certain goals there? Like when did you start seeing like, oh, if I do this, I can sell my idea or whatever it is that I was presented with
Yeah.
to a wide number of people? I don't know. Like when did you start kind of seeing your magic in
It was interesting. I mean, obviously, working for an engineering services company through high school and then through college, I was able to see that you can put things into play where A plus B equals C, and you can repeat that in things. You also have to be pretty flexible in that equation as well, because let's face it, in business and in life, a lot of things will come in to interrupt that pattern, and you have to be flexible and be
Mhm.
able to adjust on the fly. But in especially starting in DC and then in my career after that, a lot of times I was approached with kind of things wide open, saying, "Hey, we want you to figure out what the problem is, and we want you to kind of start with the end goal in mind, and then build the steps along the way to go out and to solve the problem." And so I was given plenty of opportunities around some really interesting problems to go out and exercise that muscle.
But for them to come to you with those questions, you must have proven to yourself that you could figure things out, right? So is that kind of would that happen pretty quickly wherever you went? Was that part of your kind of normal operating procedure? Like, hey, I come here, let me show you how I can figure things out, and then you've got that reputation where people come to you and say, okay, go.
Yeah. I would say this, and especially as an encouragement to the folks who are watching us who are maybe earlier on in their careers. Be encouraged by the fact that myself and everybody who preceded me did that in incremental steps. We started with small projects. We tested, we had kind of an idea. We put that idea into practice. We tested it along the way, and kind of in smaller, let's say, environments where there's less risk, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
if I fail at this particular smaller task, like the consequences aren't too great, but I can pull away really valuable, learning from that, and then just basically stair stepping up into um, more consequential projects and responsibilities, but with that confidence that you know at least this way of thinking and this way of approaching problem solving worked the last time.
Yeah.
Let's layer it over here on this bigger problem that has more responsibility, knowing that we're going to have to iterate along the way, because every problem is different than the last. So we're going to have to adjust some things here. We're going to have to adjust some things there, and we're going to have to be like very diligent about learning in that new
Okay.
problem.
So let's talk about examples, right? So this is the meaty part of it. So when you are drilling info, and I don't know how much you can talk about numbers and how much you can, just discuss there. If you can't talk numbers, maybe percentages. So when you started there, just for comparison, because you were there for 10 years, got 5 promotions. I counted. Correct me if I counted it wrong, but I counted 5 promotions in the same company, which is unheard of, incredible. Like, this is how you hit the rock star like status, because people keep promoting you. So you're doing something right, which is usually a really good sign. So when you started there and when you left, kind of what growth did the company go through? Kind of what was it when you started and what was it when you left?
Yeah. So first of all, Drilling Info Now and Veris is just such a great company. Boy, we had a great product. We had very good people. That company was a once in a lifetime type of opportunity, and I feel extremely blessed to have been part of that group of people and part of that industry. They taught me so much, and they gave me a lot of responsibility to further flex and exercise that muscle and grow. I'm really attribute a lot of my career growth to my time at that company. And one of the things that when I first started at Drilling Info, I was like bottom of the rung.
Do you remember how many salespeople they had when you started? Like what was the count?
Yeah, so we were sitting at around probably 40 salespeople, between 30 and 40
when you
salespeople.
Started, okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when I started, and the majority of those folks were out in the field. So they were in our Houston offices or Dallas offices, and I started in Austin in our inside sales team, and we had really 3 people, and
On the inside sales team.
on the inside sales team, yeah.
Okay.
And
that's when you started Sandler, or did you start Sandler before that?
I started. My previous job had a method that was very similar to Sandler, but I formally started the Sandler sales process when I started at Drilling Info, because the company was wonderful about investing in the employees, and that was just a non-negotiable. Like, we're going to have a professional sales process, and you're going to go to the Sandler. The thing about me is I adopted it wholesale and really put it like I really dedicated myself to learning it and putting it into practice. And it felt very at home because it was this blending of human interaction along with doing things through a process, right? And so I really love that marriage of those two things, people and process.
So for those watching, I want to point something out already. So what Ben is talking about, and I can attest to this. When I met you, there's people in Sandler that I could tell did not really want to be there. Like, they're just there because they were required by their company. And then there are people like you who were so like eager about learning, because we had the tables where we talked about things and role played. And I always remember, like, you were so present and you were like you wanted to learn. So one of the biggest things that I see in high quality salespeople is they're always out there trying to up their game and learn, and they're very genuine about it. So you'll know if they are full of crap because they're, I'm just here because my boss made me, versus like, hey, I'm here to learn and be better. Let's go. And like, let's push the envelope. I mean, years later, I still remember that feeling around you. So, okay. So you're starting at this company. How did they find you? Like, how did they hit this, home run with you? Like, how did they find you and how did you get the job? Like, can you tell us a quick story on that?
Yes, happy to dive in that. But first, you make a really good point that I want to really shine a spotlight on, and that is, some of us are in love with learning. Like, that's core to who we are. We're very, very driven by personal and professional growth and learning new things. That's always been something that has really got my motor running. Some people are less so, right? I agree with you. A lot of the successful people that I've come across in my career are people who love to learn. But I've got
salespeople like to learn.
They like to learn, but
that's a big trend. It's a big, and implement, learn and implement, not just like
learn.
And that's correct. Yeah, not learn for the sake of learning, but learn for the practice of being able to go out and put those things that you've learned into practice. But I've also got a word of encouragement for people who would maybe raise their hand and say, well, like I'm real passionate about other things, but maybe like professional growth and personal growth and learning isn't like core to, it's outside of like my kind of core traits and things that I'm passionate about. It's okay because you can actually convince yourself to fall in love with it. You can make a conscious decision that I'm going to fall in love with learning, but not only that, but the process of learning, right? The process of learning, which is perhaps the most important thing. And I always tell people, I say, look, we need to know ourselves really well. So number one is learn how you learn, because everybody has different learning styles. And then once you learn how you learn, go out and learn a lot, right? But one can make a conscious decision to I'm going to be a learner. I'm going to just do this. And what you'll find is, like any new skill that you develop at first, at least for people that I've coached, they kind of had to push themselves into it, but then they found a lot of traction in that. And before too long, maybe even after a few months, they came back to me and they're like, I'm devouring everything I get my hands on. Like, this is this is now a part of my journey. So
Yeah.
On learning.
Well, and one of the questions we ask usually at this stage in the interview, we ask, what's the last thing you learned? And we pay attention to what people say. And we get all kinds of answers, but that's a very important question to kind of understand if they're a continuous learner and putting them on the spot. And so that's just kind of what we digressed from kind of what we were talking about. But I think it's super important to keep drawing this every week, because that's like, you start seeing the profile very quickly when you start talking to somebody. Okay. So how did you get that job? Like, how did they find you? Did you go through the actual process, or did you know somebody in the company? Like, how did you land that job?
I found them in a Craigslist listing.
Okay. So you applied, like you went through the process. If you can
believe that. Yeah. If you can believe that. I found it was an inside sales, ad on Craigslist. And
wow.
Honestly, I saw that, and at first my pride swelled up, and I thought, like, I'm not going to apply for that. That's like an hourly, that's below me. I've got all these contacts from working in DC and from going to school and all these different things. And then I heard a still small voice that has really, been there with me throughout my life, providing guidance. And that thing said, look, don't pray for doors to open, and then when a door's open, let your pride get in the way.
That hit me. So that's so good.
Yeah, it was really quite a moment. I'll never forget it. And I've had many other experiences similar to that. And I said, you're right, and I'm gonna go after this. So I applied. They put me through the ringer. Multiple interviews with multiple different people. The hiring manager, I'll never forget, we went to have tacos, and he and I sat down for breakfast, and he said, we just he was kind of waffling a little bit, and I was ready to get going. And so I looked at him and I said, I used some kind of illustration about like a high school dance. I said, if you go to dance and, as a male, like if you invite some girl to a dance and she's kind of like, yeah, I don't know if I want to go and stuff, you start getting kind of second thoughts. And I said, well, that's how I'm feeling right now. Like, I'm ready to make this relationship official. Like, let's go, let's move this. And he gave me a big smile and he said, we knew you were the right guy for the job. We'll get an offer out to you later today.
So this is where my wisdom dropping is. It's like, did you see what he did? So he closed the interviewer, which is something that I highly recommend to do all the time. If you want the job, say it. Do what Ben has done. I mean, I'm just getting goosebumps all over. Like, it's so rare when people actually do it, and the fact that you did it, now it makes sense why you got promoted there 5 times. So you got hired. They put you through the training. So you started basically at the bottom, like you said, like at the bottom of the ladder, right? So hourly. Now, it didn't last very long because you got promoted very quick, from what I remember. So what did you do to start, like, how did you go from this to the next level? Kind of what did you have to do? And was it
Yeah.
self-driven? Did they give you like do X, Y, and Z to get promoted?
Well, and yeah, and by the way, too, on closing, I found that if you can wrap a close in humor,
Yes.
or in a
Make
memorable
it
kind of quirky
human. Yeah.
story, yeah, boy, that has really helped me along the way. But so yeah, I started, and basically I dove in head first and probably asked my manager. He would probably say 2,000 questions in the first 3 months because I wanted to know everything that I could. And so I learned everything that I could about the product and the company and the industry. And then what began to happen is I started to see gaps in our little department, things that we could shore up, and it would drive quite a bit of revenue. And it was mostly around what was happening is we were very reactive. So people would call in. We were basically manning the phones. People would call in, and we'd pick up the phone and kind of take an order. Right? And I looked at that and I thought, we can change this up. We can be more proactive in our outbound, but then also at this point we've accumulated quite a few customers. Let's very proactively, in an organized fashion, go out and upgrade these existing customers and very much more actively approach the renewal, right? And to try to get more business, win more business with them through the renewal process. So I put together a business plan and submitted that up through my hiring manager, and they actually took it to like the senior management team. And they said, "Wow, this is great." By the way, sorry for my feed cutting out here. I'm not sure what's going on with the.
I know. I can hear you fine. It's just I can't. I hope it resolves. But at least you're
I have
frozen
been
the great
practicing.
spring.
I've been practicing as a ventriloquist, and this is me doing my. I've gotten pretty good at it, as you can see.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's hope it's gonna correct itself because I have no idea how to fix it.
So I submitted a business plan up through the business, and they said, "This is great. We're in agreement with you, and we think that you're the one to go out and to execute it." So again, identifying a problem, putting together in a thoughtful manner, in a way that is process oriented, in a way that we could measure it and iterate throughout. And then it's all about execution, right? Going out and doing that thing that you said that you would do. But also too, those folks at the company exercised quite a bit of faith in me and gave me an opportunity that frankly would change my career and my life going forward. And so we put that plan into motion. We crushed it. We moved from being basically the junior leagues at the company to being a very much favored department. We grew the department exponentially over 5 years, and they're still on that trajectory now. And so, that was just a wonderful beginning. It was a ton of work. But, and by the way, the plan was kind of broken out into people and people development and a hiring plan. The second was product and identifying and maximizing product market fit. The third was building out and executing processes, both sales processes and some other processes that we wanted to kind of measure inside of our CRM and things. And then all of that delivered through thoughtfully laid out systems so that we could measure everything and iterate very, very quickly. About doing that.
So basically, have you done this before, or was this your first time sort of giving this a shot like this and coming up with the plan to execute?
So in that wasn't my first time to identify a problem, build a plan, and execute it, but it was in a formalized transactional sales environment. And then luckily from that point forward, I've had the opportunity to go out and do that probably 15 to 20 more times. And
Right. What? Right. Because that. I mean, you've been kind of you've made this transition. That's not a lot of time happens for really good salespeople. Go from individual contributor to being more of the leader, the sales leader. And in fact, it's very rare when that successfully happens. So clearly, you've done certain things that, and I have some questions later about that. So you started at 3 salespeople, and then after this plan, do you remember the growth or the numbers? Like, how did that? What happened after that?
yeah, we were growing. We grew that department at about 45% year over year, which anybody who understands compounding, that becomes really exciting very quickly. And of course, we needed great people to go out and execute the plan. So, we grew headcount, ended up being like tenfold. We took a lot of the things that
On the
we
inside
did.
sales, right?
Yeah, we ended up when I handed that department off, I think we had about 30 people in that
So
department,
wait,
and I was actually kind of running a couple other departments. So.
you're saying that you made that plan where you were still an individual contributor and saw the room for improvement, right? You talked about gaps, things that could be done better. So did you come up with that plan before you officially were promoted to be more of a manager, or after you got promoted?
Before I got promoted, which I would say is an important point for everyone, is
I'm leading the witness. Yeah.
Yeah, you're leading the witness. We really have to identify where we want to be, and then we have to start behaving in a manner that's in line with that position. So I wanted to be a sales manager, so I started to act like a sales manager while also executing my current responsibilities, because you can't leave that on the sideline.
You can't be a terrible salesperson and say, I'm going to be the leader, right? But you can't do that.
Yeah, that's right. And, but in the plan, I wrote the plan during my nights and weekends, and I think that this is a really important point, is I have found that so many successes boil down to 2 things, and that's confidence and conviction. Confidence and conviction. And, confidence and conviction can be the gasoline in an engine. And when I saw those gaps, and I knew that there was a lot of opportunity to better serve our customers, acquire new customers, have absolutely delighted customers in that regard, and for me to better serve our company and my department, I had a lot of confidence in that, and I had a lot of conviction in that. Which, if you blend confidence and conviction, it can otherwise be called enthusiasm, right? So I was just very enthusiastic about, wow, we can go out and we can do this, and I see a path to go out and do it. So I'm going to put together the plan and go out and execute it. And of course, you put a plan into place, and you very quickly learn that, like, oh, new information is being introduced. Like, we're going to have to adjust here, and we need to adjust there. So it's not about being, in fact, it's detrimental to be rigid in that, in putting plans and executing plans in place. But you got to have a general idea of where you're going and how you're going to get there, and probably most importantly, why. Why you're going that direction.
Right. So you went from account executive to account executive and team lead, which would you say it's fair to say like a player coach?
Yes, that's exactly right.
So you spent about 7 months doing that, right? And then you got promoted to a sales manager, and then director of sales, and then general manager. So at what point did you stop selling yourself?
Well, I don't know that we ever stopped selling ourselves.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, look, and again, we have to evaluate our heart in the manner, right? If our heart is, we're doing a thing because, again, we have confidence, we have conviction, and at the end of the day, we want to help and serve people, our customers, our company, our department, our team. Well, in order to do that, we have to be able to effectively communicate our ideas and translate our own confidence and conviction to other people, transfer that to them so that they can have the confidence and the conviction in where we're going and why we're going that direction. And a bit of that is we're selling ourselves in that. And so we have to, in order to sell ourselves very well, we have to be well prepared when we go forward with an idea. We have to make sure that we're always trying to improve ourselves. We have to make sure that we're communicating these ideas in the plan clearly and in a concise manner, speaking to the audience where they're at. And then that we're going out and we're doing the work, right? And so throughout that whole process, we're working to give people the confidence and the conviction in the vision, in the plan, and in our ability to execute that thing.
So many questions. Okay. So when it comes, because let's go back a little bit to your goals and your vision and your motivation. So Adam and I talked last week about how important it is as a leader to understand what your people's goals are and motivation is, because no one is going to care about your company's goals if you don't really care about their goals. And that's something I feel like a lot of people miss in the interview process, is understanding like what's driving this person. So did you, when you applied for the job, I bet you didn't know, or maybe you did, that you wanted to become one of the sales leaders there? Like, what was your, how did your goals evolve when you started and as you sort of continued to grow and evolve in the company personally?
It's true. I mean, a lot of times we just have to get underneath the hood to really understand what we're working with. And then we have to shape a plan around that. We have to set goals and then build a plan around those goals. My goals always change and evolve. In fact, I had a really very talented CEO say one time that they don't believe at all in like long-term goal setting or long-term planning. Like he said, you can set goals, but there's so many things that are going to change between now and then.
Right.
Like, so we did more quarterly planning, and half-year planning.
But you
planning.
Personally had a goal to be a sales leader at some point in your career. So it wasn't your goal,
Well,
personal goals.
It's interesting because the thing that has been my core and has always driven me is just to do things with excellence. And so my thing, whether I was crawling in a dirty attic working on HVAC systems with the engineering company I was working with in high school and college, or whether I was meeting with chairmans of large companies in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill, or whether I was sitting down to make cold calls, I just wanted to do it well and with excellence. And I've always wanted the things that I produce and the way that I serve people to go out and to do that well, and putting in the work in order to go out and execute on those things. And so when I got in, it was kind of more, I want to conduct myself with excellence, and I can do that at this point in time and in this organization and given these set of challenges. The best avenue in which to go and do that is through being a sales manager.
Right.
Okay. Am I explaining that okay?
So your North Star was, I want to do whatever I can with excellence. And as you got in and started seeing gaps, opportunities, you a lot of other puzzle things start coming together. So
yeah, because I wrote the plan. I wrote the plan more for the business to understand the gaps in the way that we could grow. And I wanted to execute it, but I gave them the plan so that they would be aware that was going on.
And then they're like, "Oh, well, you're the perfect person. Go do this."
Yeah, and that, yeah, that's right. And so, just leading with everything that we can have, everything that we've got. And I have to tell my teams and my kids and my girlfriend and, you know, my family members, whoever it may be, that look, you can always be confident that I'm going to give you everything that I have. Some days my battery is going to be 25%.
Mhm.
And so, you know, what I'm giving you may not be awesome, but you can be confident that I'm giving you everything that I have. If I've got 25% battery left, I'm giving you the 25%. If I've got 100% battery, I'm giving you 100%. And that's carried through in my career as well, to be driven by that excellence, and then basically looking for avenues, given the time, the business, the industry, the particular, you know, dynamics that are going on at that moment. What is the best avenue to serve the customer's organization, the people, with excellence? And then whatever that may look like, if we put a title to it or a name to it, whether it's sales manager or you know, senior vice president or CRO. I've held all those titles, or
Mhm.
you know, somebody to sweep the floor, whatever it may
Right.
be. Do it with intention and excellence.
So, what did you? By the time you left, because the company got acquired, Drilling Info got acquired or bought, because they have a different name now, so I don't know what happened to them.
Well, the
What's
company
the
rebranded it.
rebranded? Okay.
Yeah, they had excellent private equity partners,
Mhm.
a series of excellent private equity partners, and so they continue to partner with those in more in larger capacities.
So
And have taken that sort of.
by the time you left, like in your last role, what were you responsible for? Because you kind of got you inherited underperforming market or something, right? So did you move from inside sales to a completely different vertical? Kind of how did your journey kind of end there?
Well, again, my story has really been one of just really competent, amazing people giving me more and more opportunities and more responsibilities. And so um, you know, they allowed me to step into the product department, which was a wonderful experience. I learned so much about what it is to, you know, identify product market fit, and all the work that goes into identifying product market fit, and then, you know, taking a product to market in a thoughtful and successful manner. You know, putting together the go-to-market strategy, the sales playbook, creating channels by which to go out and take your product to market, working on messaging. So, you know, it's really a combination, and then also just working with developers and people to, you know, build the widget. So that was just an incredible experience under leaders who are probably, and I don't say this lightly, probably the very best at what they do. Those
So
product
you
leaders and those sales leaders.
how in so I bet you had some mentors or coaches or I don't know what, but this kind of transformation, right? Because then you took what you learned there and you started bringing that expertise and experience in your later roles. But what do you think helped you the most? Is it journaling? Is it coaching? Is it mentoring? How in the world did you go from individual contributor to like being trusted with some of the most important things in the company's kind of growth?
I would say it wasn't outside of maybe prayer.
Okay.
for, for me. I mean, really, I really mean that. But I would say it was really a blend or a cocktail of all the above. I mean, you know, number one is we have to know ourselves. I mentioned earlier, you know how you learn and then go learn a lot. But we really do. We have to constantly be exploring and getting to know ourselves and what motivates us, what makes us tick, what are our innate skills and talents, and then what are our innate limitations, and then kind of sussing those out to say, well, you know, this limitation that I have, I can improve upon it, and I can, take it from a 2 to maybe a 6. I'll never be a 10, but I can have improvement there from a 2 to a 6. This other limitation that I have over there, I'm just never going to be that. I'm never going to be good in that area. So I'm going to focus on particularly my strengths, my innate skills, and then I'm going to try to shore up a few weaknesses along the way. And in order to do that,
sorry, yep. So you had reflection practice of some sort of like seeing, evaluating yourself.
Yeah, because I mean, we there's a lot of tools in order to go do that. I mean, the reality is we will never spend as much time with any other person in our lifetime than we will with ourselves, right?
Right.
So we must self-reflect. We must journal. I look at books as a way of having a conversation with the author. So reading books, watching videos, also surrounding myself with people who are competent and who I know have my best interest in mind, who can see things that are, in my 6, things that are in my blind spots that I can't see, and who can tell me directly and really how it is, but in a loving way, so that I'll accept that and put those things into practice. And so, it really starts and ends with us, but then it really depends a lot on those exercises and those things that we're willing to do to go out and to know that about ourselves and to shore it up.
And willing to be uncomfortable and putting yourself out there. Because I mean, even now putting that plan out, that's a brave thing to do, right? To take that chance. Now
I would say that I'm not one of those people that walks in 100% confidence and 100%. I'm not 100% sure about myself. I have butterflies a lot in and
you
around
still do
things,
it,
but you still do it.
Yeah. So another quick little tip: always look for somebody who takes initiative, right? So clearly, Ben is somebody like that, and he's always been like that. From my personal experience too, he does take initiative, and that's something important. Those are other questions I like to ask in the interview about initiative, because it's, as Jay Papasan, the writer of The One Thing, he said he would rather have people that he says, whoa, than giddy up, right? So kind of like with the horse.
100% agree.
Because it's a lot easier to lead somebody when you're trying to like slow them down versus like constantly, let's go, do this, do that. So sounds like, again, fit into that criteria, Ben. So not surprisingly at all. Now, I know we're kind of running out of time here, but I wanted to ask a couple more questions before I let you go. So think about, once you left Drilling Info, what were some of the biggest achievements or accomplishments from like the numbers perspective, because sales is all about numbers, that you're the most proud of, that your team was able to accomplish with you as you were there? Just a couple, 1 or 2.
Well, I mean, I would say the thing that I'm most proud of is the people and developing the people. I mean, we grew the team substantially. We retained people because we built an amazing company and culture, which was a concerted effort by everyone. But the majority of people that we hired stayed and were promoted into positions of higher responsibility. Most of them inside of the organization, but then for the few that left, they took what they learned from their time at the company, and they went to other companies, and they had great impact in higher degrees of responsibility. And look, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, the way I think of it, these folks, this makes a big difference in our lives. I mean, it's not only for us and for them, but it's their families, it's their communities. I mean, the people who invested in me literally changed my life and my family's life, and I go forward. And I was thinking about that and having what was done for me and going out and being able to set the stage and do that for other people. Now, important thing on people is, I always look at willingness and ability of my staff. And, if someone's not willing to do the work, the self work, the work otherwise, not a lot that I can do with that. So, that employee must really meet, kind of come midway, and then really carry a lot of the work themselves. If they're kind of low on the ability scale, I can usually coach somebody up and get them in a better position than they are today, but can't really do a whole lot with willingness. And so, on the other side of that coin is, as I've built teams, not only at that company, but a lot of other companies as well, I've had the opportunity to work with some really great people, above me, and people who rolled up to me, who were really enthusiastic and willing to do the work to put themselves in better positions.
That is so true, because you made a difference for them. They can go make a difference for others, and it's just kind of like you start this chain, right, of events. And then from the revenue perspective, the company, what do you think happened in 10 years in what you were responsible for? And I don't know if you can give me numbers, but percentages of growth, kind of, well, how does that translate into actual?
Yeah, I mean, probably not specific numbers, but we, if you take, pretty much every single business unit that we got involved in, we typically grew at around 40% year over year, which, by the way, is that mountain becomes much steeper the bigger the number, because
it's exactly.
there's a difference. Yeah, there's a difference between growing revenue 40% on a $10 million number than on a $50 million number. But to have that kind of sustained growth throughout a number of companies has been pretty consistent in my career.
And it sounds like so the reason I even bring this up is because people and hiring the talent, it's all important, but it's also like what you talked about early on, is identifying those gaps and creating the cookbooks, as we say in Sandler, right? And the implementing and executing, you making a machine that is predictable. And so versus, are we going to meet the goals this year, or we're not going to meet the goals this year? So that's you don't want to play that game, right? You want to be more predictable than that. Do you have a couple more minutes for one more question, or I know you have a meeting to go? Okay.
Yes.
So we'll talk about amazing people in your life who taught you a lot, but then I bet there's some people in your life, which we're not going to have to mention their names, that you learned a lot on how not to be a certain kind of a boss, right, when it comes to sales. And again, we don't need any names, but kind of what are some of the leaders that you learned what did you learn from leaders that maybe have not been great, about how did you wish that they would manage you better, or maybe you learned from them that you want to be better? So in other words, some tips for people to know what not to do when it comes to your sales talent and nurturing and growing it.
Yeah. So it was really hard, and particularly hard at the time, to be grateful for those difficult people in my life. But, I'm able to look back and be very thankful for those people too, because you can learn probably more from a difficult person than even from people that come alongside and are,
and it takes wisdom to see that, because it's one thing to bash them, another thing is appreciate them, because there's something to appreciate from everybody. So give me top 3 things that you learned from them.
Yeah. So first of all, I'll say that as leaders, we really do try to motivate our people, although motivation is really more up to the individual than us.
100.
But I'll say this: a leader must be careful to not demotivate their people, that the things that they're doing are not demotivating their people. And so there's a lot of things in and around that. I mean, particularly as it relates to salespeople, people need to understand the vision of where you're going and why. And I'll share a common framework that I use with you that I picked up from some coaches and mentors. So as leaders, we really have to cast a vision for our people, and that is, where have we been, where are we today, and where are we going, and why? And our people must understand that and be bought into the vision. Number one. Secondly, we need to serve our people and kind of approach things from a point of service for people. And then we need to teach, train, equip, and empower our people. And really in that order, teach them. That's kind of laying out the lessons, training them and doing that in an ongoing method and having them adapt and adopt it. Equipping them kind of falls in line with that, and empowering them to go out and then do the same. And then once we get through that process, we get to the end of it, then we're measuring and we're iterating and we're adjusting as need be. But what I found is if there's a broken link along the way in any of those things, we can teach and train our people all day long, but if they're left saying to themselves, well, why?
Mhm.
Why are we doing this? And where are we going? And how are we getting there? You're going to have confusion in your organization.
So it sounds like what you're saying is that those leaders that you learned a lot about what not to do are the ones who have not been successful at doing one of the three, or maybe all of the three.
A combination of all the three.
Okay.
Yeah. And then also, kind of the more obvious is, I've worked with leaders who were much more coercive than anything else, and boy,
What
that
does
can
coercive
destroy.
mean?
Coercive being overbearing and to almost say you're going to do this or else.
Gotcha.
In doing that, I've even worked in some hostile work environments, which was difficult. But and at the end of the day, not only do people take that on personally, but their productivity decreases significantly. Their capacity to serve one another and serve customers well, really just to even do their own work, diminishes significantly. And so, and look, it's not to say as bosses, we have to be direct with our people. We have to be able to communicate clearly, be direct. There's times where, staff will go off the rails and they need to be corrected quickly. Certainly if they're hurting the organization, that has to be dealt with. And, if they're putting themselves in like harm's way, they must be, you have to be coercive and you have to tell them stop that immediately. And you have to be very direct.
Right.
You have to do that very measured. And some of the leaders that I've worked with in my career, luckily very few, but they tend to overplay the coercive hand. And as a result, they get less productivity out of their people.
Mm-hmm. Oof. I mean, we all had those people. So to wrap this up, before I wrap this up, I want to kind of point very, very quick tip over here. As you noticed as I was interviewing, Ben, and I asked him about numbers, and I respectively said, if you don't have to tell me all the numbers, but I want percentages if you can share that. So that's what true performers, they want to talk about the accomplishments. And some people confident, yes, they can't disclose exact numbers to you, and you shouldn't coerce them to do that, but they will always be happy to talk about percentages or some kind of improvements that they've done. So always look out for that, because look at Ben. He was able to share the story without specific details, but he was still able to communicate his performance and the team's performance without revealing everything, because at the end of the day, you want somebody who's not vague, but more specific. So that's what I want you guys to start learning and training yourself, is to look for that in your candidate, not somebody who just talks about, pie in the sky without any kind of specifics.
Olga, if I may just build on that, because it's a really important point. So at this point, I've recruited, interviewed, hired, and developed probably north of 200 people in the different companies and organizations. And for any type of resume, particularly for a sales resume, I want to see lots of numbers, because numbers provide a lot of context. However, a number is only significant when you can measure it against another number. And so a framework that I like to use to build further context into a number in a resume is, how does that number measure against the plan that they were set out to accomplish? And if they weren't given one by their manager, what's the plan that they put into place? And what were those quantified metrics? So how did it measure against the plan? How did it measure against the previous year or previous period? So was there growth? Was there, uptick, downtick? How did that look? And then the last P is against their peers. So if they were a sales rep in a team of 10, how did they measure against their peers? And those three things provide a lot of really helpful context.
Well,
and if the salesperson leads with that, that's even a better sign.
I did not pay Ben to say this. He said this on his own, but that is what we preach all the time when we interview salespeople, is at first, they have to have numbers on the resume. If they don't, I mean, that's why are we even talking? And then when they do have numbers, it's your job as an interviewer to drill into the numbers and ask questions. What Ben talked, like, I couldn't have summed it up better than you did, is to ask questions about those numbers. And that's super important, because then the true story comes out. So thanks for sharing that unprompted. Anyway, so to wrap this up, you kind of led me to, you've interviewed a lot of people in your life. The show is called Get Me Someone Who Can Sell. What are your, maybe 2 or 3 things that you look for when you interview people, that this person will be probably a good fit versus this person is not going to be a good fit? Do you have any kind of cheat sheet or any secrets, or is it kind of, what's your framework?
Oh, absolutely. And I think everybody has a lot. I mean, character is number one. You have to be able to trust character and integrity. You have to be able to trust the employee. And so I really work to suss out their character and their integrity, and what are things that they have, challenges and things that they've butted up against that they were able to walk through and demonstrate character and integrity. Most importantly, probably when no one was looking, right? The other thing that I look for more, it is really important to me, is that this person is organized in their approach to business, organized in their thought process. So that, Olga, you talked about it, but when I'm interviewing candidates, I really look for like a thoughtful, organized approach where, it may be that they put a plan into place and they had to iterate along the way, but did they have a plan in place, and was that thing well thought out, and was it kind of sequential, right? So that they could go through it and execute it very well. So being organized is really important. And I look for a good motor, a good engine, because business is difficult. And we've got to have people who can work and do the work and get in and do it. And I always try to suss out willingness around a thing. I spoke to that earlier in in our time together, but there are people who I've just found a lot of success really boils down to how eager someone is, or how enthusiastic they are around a thing. They're if I was hiring for someone who was cold calling, right? I could have 2 candidates in front of me. One candidate, actually, let's say 3 candidates. One candidate says, I love to cold call. Believe it or not, I've interviewed people who are that way. They're that's the first thing I do when I get up in the morning. I love to do it. I love to talk to people that I haven't met before. I love the challenge of it. Then the other person, the second candidate, might say, well, I like to cold call. Well, I'll cold call, but I don't really like doing it. But I'll do it if that's what's necessary, right? And then the third person's I hate cold calling. And the reality is people know they're interviewing for a job. So most of the time they'll say, I'll do a thing, but they really have to kind of push themselves to do it. And so it's important as interviewers that we really kind of bring that to the surface. What's the real story here? Do they have energy? Is this activity that I'm hiring for this particular person that's sitting in front of me, does this bring them life, or does it suck life out of them? Because that will determine a lot of success.
It's so true. I agree 100%. Okay, well, listen, thank you so much for coming. Where can people find you? Are you currently hiring? Kind of, do you have anything we can do to help you and to thank you for your time to spend with us? Anything we can maybe spread the word about what you're currently doing? Kind of time for you
Yeah,
to.
I'd love to connect with people on LinkedIn. My profile is Ben Kelton. I've got a little rocket.
Yep.
That was one of my nicknames growing up, was Rocket. So I don't know. I've got a little rocket there on my profile. I'd love to connect with people. Send me a direct message on LinkedIn, and we can talk. Always happy to help.
Awesome. And yep, it's going to be a pleasure to work for you, whoever, if they ever work for you, because you're incredible. And as for me, this is what we do at my company. We interview salespeople and help CEOs and growing companies find salespeople who can sell. So if you need any help, I'm happy to talk. Any questions, let me know. Schedule a call. Always happy to chat and see if I can help. If I can help, great. If not, I'll point you out somewhere else that would be more helpful. So on this note, Ben, you were such a delight and such a treat. Thank you so much. I may invite you later for more talk, because we can talk forever about other things that we didn't even get to. But I really
we're just scratching the surface.
I just wanted to show to other people what it takes to keep moving and never settle, because some people have their career kind of frozen on the line. Some people move up, some people move down. So how do you find those people that will keep moving up with you? So you are clearly one of those people. Follow Ben, and thanks again for coming.
Be blessed, everybody. Thank you, Olga.
See ya. Bye. Absolutely. See ya. Thank you.